and I'm sure 90% of Germans cannot answer this question because I have already asked too many Germans in real life.
Let's see.
The question is, if this is the German traditional Southern clothes.
Yeah, that is the traditional German Saufen clothes.
This is the Bavarian traditional dress.
Correct.
You know? If this is the Southern German
Yes, that is the German Saufen
clothes.
And now I have to apologize, because I thought you mean Saufen, like drinking, excessive drinking. I apologize. You mean Southern. Okay, let's hear your question.
Then what is the traditional Northern clothes? What people in Northern or middle of Germany wear? Because every time I search something about Germany, or in the news or on the TV, they always show this one, the Bavarian one, but I never seen the traditional Northern German clothes.
Okay, now I understand your question, and I think I can answer it. You asked the wrong question. That's one part. But before we come to that, we have to divide by traditional working clothes and traditional clothing in general. Almost every job in Germany has its own traditional working clothes. And if you know the difference, you can pretty easily divide them. For example, the carpenter, or the chimney sweeper, or the trucker. But let's come to your question. You asked about a general northern traditional clothing, or middle German traditional clothing, or southern German traditional clothing. And like I said, you asked the wrong question, because you asked too general. You have to ask specific, because you have to understand Germany 200 years ago or 400 years ago. It wasn't one land, one country. It was around 300 countries. And every country in that time had its own culture, its own traditions, its own belief system, and also its own clothing. They were really similar. But when you see them, you see the uniqueness. Let's begin, for example, with the most northern island, Sylt. That is a traditional clothing on Sylt. Let's go one island down to Föhr. That is Föhr, the traditional clothing. You see, there are differences. Okay, let's go to Rügen. Let's go to Rügen. That is the traditional clothing on Rügen. More specific, the traditional clothing on Rügen for fishermen. And now you see, I hope, the difficulty of your question. It isn't so easy to answer them. It is very difficult. And for funsies, let's see the Sorbians. That is Middle Germany. East Middle Germany. More specific, the border region of East Middle Germany. Like I said, every part of Germany has its own culture, its own traditional clothing, its own everything. And now, let's go to the Black Forest. And I love it, because I call it Bommel. It's a rabbit hole you don't want to go in if you aren't sure you want to go in.